Welcome to a second chance. My name is Jones.
And my name is Tafaro Cook, two-time kidney transplant recipient and founder of Kidney Care Coaches, where we coach people with stage 3 to stage 5 kidney disease. If you or you know someone who needs kidney disease coaching, hit us up at kidneycarecoaches.com.
Today we have a very awesome presentation. You've seen Lizzie before. She was one of our presenters during our dialysis conference that we just did. Earlier, late last month. Did a great job. It was like, we got to bring her back to do another presentation. She did a great job. So we're gonna go ahead and just get straight into the presentation. Lindsay, the floor is yours. First off, before you get into your presentation, just tell a little bit about yourself, and then you can go ahead and get started.
Sure. So my name is Lindsay Ducharme. I'm a registered dietitian, and for the past 8 years, I've worked with kidney patients. I work at a dialysis center, and this past year, I opened my own private practice focused on providing nutrition therapy to those with CKD not on dialysis, with the goal of helping them preserve their kidney function so they can hopefully avoid ending up on dialysis. So I love working with kidney patients and advocating for them to seek nutrition counseling. And I'm excited to be here. So thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. We appreciate you joining us. So whenever you're ready, I'll bring it in when it's ready.
All right. So let me just share my presentation. Well, hold on one second. I started from the beginning. All right. Do you see it? Okay. So today I'm going to be talking about sodium and CKD. So what you need to know. So first I want to discuss sodium trends in the United States. So most of us know this, Americans consume too much sodium. So according to the CDC, 90% of Americans ages 2 and older consume too much sodium. So that's basically everyone in the population. It's crazy. So the average sodium intake in the US for adults is 3,400 milligrams. So how much sodium do we need? So we do need some sodium. In order for our body to function properly, we need 500 milligrams, which is a very minimal amount. I mean, it's very impossible to stick to that 500 milligrams, and it's unnecessary. So for healthy adults, the recommendation is less than 2,300 milligrams. So what about for CKD? So it's similar to the recommendations for healthy adults. So less than 2,300 milligrams. Typically anywhere from 1,500 to 2,300 milligrams is recommended. Although there are certain instances, like for polycystic kidney disease, where people are drinking a lot of fluids, they may actually need more than the 2,300 milligrams. So it's a case-by-case basis, but most people around 2,000 milligrams is what you want to go for if you have CKD. So why does sodium matter so much? So too much sodium can increase blood pressure. So when our blood pressure is high, it's very damaging to the arteries. It makes them less flexible. So this can cause a decrease of blood flow throughout the body. So less blood around our body means we're getting less oxygen to our organs, and that's causing harm. So the World Health Organization said that reducing sodium intake is the most cost-effective measure to improve public health. So it's not just for CKD, it's for, heart disease, all kinds of things is going to be impacted by your sodium intake. Okay. So I hear this a lot. People think, oh, I'm already following a low sodium diet. I don't add salt to my food. But unfortunately, most sodium is coming from packaged and pre-made foods. So this one study showed that packaged foods contain 60%, 65% of the sodium in people's diets. So restaurant food contributes about 25%. And people that add salt, that's only contributing to 10% of their sodium intake. So not much at all. Most of it's coming from these processed and pre-made foods. So this was taken from the CDC. This is the top 10 salty foods in the US. So these 10 foods are providing the most sodium in the American diet. So some of these are kind of surprising, like bread and rolls. I mean, sometimes bread doesn't even taste that salty, but it can add a lot of sodium. So some of these pizza, sandwiches, cold cuts, a lot of these things people do know are high in sodium. Soups, of course, burritos and tacos, savory snacks. So that would be chips, pretzels, popcorn. Chicken is actually a major contributor of sodium, as well as cheese and eggs and omelets that have been prepared at restaurants typically. So I just want to touch upon the package claims. So this is what the FDA uses when they're putting a claim on a package. Like if it says salt or sodium free, that food has to contain less than 5 milligrams of sodium per serving. So very low sodium, you'll see 35 milligrams or less per serving. If it says low sodium, that means 140 milligrams of sodium or less. But there are two of these claims that are very misleading. So reduced sodium, that means at least 25%, that food is at least 25% less in sodium than the regular product. So you don't know if, you're thinking a food starts with like 500 milligrams, 25% less, it's still going to be pretty high. Same thing with light in sodium or lightly salted. I don't really see this claim very much, but it is a legit claim. And that means at least 50% less sodium than the regular product. And of course, you have your no added salt or unsalted, which is typically a safer choice, although not always. Just because I find that some of these unsalted products may have potassium chloride. Same thing with like the low sodium, very low sodium. So you can't really always trust the nutrient claims. So we'll go over how you want to choose your low sodium foods in a minute. But I just found these foods were surprisingly salty. So I have chicken here because some chickens are treated with solutions to make them like more plump or juicy. So this can add a lot of sodium to the product. So a normal chicken breast, it naturally does have some sodium, but maybe like 70 milligrams per like chicken breast. So these sodium treated meats, they have a lot more salt in them. So soup labeled reduced sodium, I kind of touched upon that. This one particular soup still has 410 milligrams of sodium per cup. So breakfast cereals can actually be quite salty. So you think All Bran sounds like a super healthy cereal, but this cereal has 300 milligrams of sodium per serving. So that's very high for cereal. Things that don't necessarily taste salty can still be quite salty, like especially baked goods like a muffin or even pastries. They do have a good amount of salt in them sometimes. So you also have to be careful, like people may consider, anything that says light, like this Italian dressing says light. It may be light in calories, but not sodium. So 2 tablespoons, it has a lot of sodium in it. And then bread as well. So again, like people assume, it's organic, it has to be healthy, but just because it's organic doesn't mean it's going to be necessarily the best product for you. Like this bread, that's a lot of sodium per slice at 230 milligrams. So especially if you're having like a sandwich, you're going to double that. So you always want to be reading the food labels for sodium. So I start at the serving size. So this is what this whole label is going to be based off of. So it doesn't mean you need to stick to the serving size, because obviously sometimes, the serving size is 6 crackers. That's not a ton of crackers. You can have double the serving, but then you just want to remember to double the sodium. So as I was saying in the beginning, so 2,000 milligrams is typically recommended for CKD. So if you think about it, if you're someone who eats 3 meals a day and 2 snacks, and you break down this 2,000 milligrams, you can technically have, if you're eating your meal like similar nutrient content wise, so 500 milligrams of sodium per meal and 250 milligrams sodium per snack. So a lot of people think like 500 milligrams sounds like a lot, but if you think about it, that could totally fit into your diet. Because I know a lot of people, they'll see recipes and they'll be like, oh, this has like 300 milligrams of sodium. I'm like, it's really not that much if you think of the whole picture of what you're allowed. So restaurant foods. So fast food restaurants, on average, each meal, if it's 1,000 calories, per 1,000 calories, it would contain on average 1,848 milligrams of sodium. So we all know fast food is salty, but dine-in restaurants are actually more salty. So per 1,000 calories, in general, you're going to be getting a little over 2,000 milligrams of sodium. So if you, I'll get into this in a minute, but yeah, it's very typical for restaurant meals to pack this much sodium. Let me try and go back. Okay, so here I looked at the menu at Chipotle. So I looked online because they have the nutrition facts on there. So I broke down, so this is their vegan burrito. So it's made with sofritas, which is like made out of tofu, basically. So some people may assume like it's vegan, so it's going to be a good choice. But this burrito, as you can see, it has over 2,200 milligrams of sodium. So this rice bowl, however, it's still on the higher side of sodium, but it's much better. Because you can see the tortilla is very salty. For some reason, the white rice is saltier than the brown rice. The beans are about the same. Yeah, the pico de gallo is very salty, but the corn salsa is less salty, which is good. So of course, if you have CKD, it doesn't mean you can't eat out. You're going to be invited to, gatherings and birthday parties. I would never expect anyone to feel like they have to miss out on these things just because they have a chronic disease. There are some tips that can make eating out safer. So definitely plan ahead. So the day you're eating out, try and do like a healthier breakfast and lunch. You definitely don't want to skip a meal just to try and save up your calories or sodium, because then you tend to overdo it. If you show up at the restaurant starving, you may feel like you need to have an appetizer and then your meal. So it's better to just eat normally during the day and then enjoy your meal out. So check the restaurant's website. If it's a chain restaurant, they are going to have nutrition facts. More local restaurants, I don't believe they're required to, at least not in my state. But it's still worth a shot. I mean, even if you check out the menu ahead of time, it can still give you some ideas. You can plan ahead of what you think might be the healthier option. So I recommend choosing one safer item with your meal. So a lot of times if you get like a side salad or something with dressing on the side, or some sort of vegetable dish without sauce, just so you have something fresh to offset, your treat for the meal. So you can ask for no added salt. The restaurant may not be able to remove the salt from everything. Like if there's like a sauce or if they, make things in a batch. But it's still a good idea because maybe they're adding, a lot of salt at the end for some flavor. So that's something you could do. You could consider skipping the bread if they serve bread at the beginning, because one slice of bread can actually contain a couple hundred milligrams of sodium. And of course, stay hydrated. I definitely recommend drinking water at a restaurant because that's just the most hydrating, rather than like a soda or something. And lastly, but most importantly, don't let one meal derail your diet. One meal is not going to ruin your kidney health. It's really, if you're eating out, all the time, yes, that may have an impact. But, if you're going out to eat like a couple times a month, don't let that feel like you've ruined your health in any way. So I just wanted to touch upon salt because I do get this question a lot, like what salt is safest? So as you can see, all salt is going to be high in sodium. So we have table salt, and this is per 1 teaspoon. So 1 teaspoon of table salt is basically exceeding your needs for the day. And sea salt and pink salt, they're still very, very high in sodium. So this pink salt that everyone, thinks is amazing, it's still meeting more than half your sodium needs for the day in 1 teaspoon. And the reason why these numbers are a little bit lower, the pink salt and the kosher salt, it's basically the size of the salt crystals. They're larger, and so they end up like taking more weight. Whereas the table salt, it's very, very tiny crystals. So you're going to fit more sodium on the spoon pretty much. Okay, and salt substitutes. So salt substitutes, they are made from potassium chloride. So although they're going to have no sodium for the most part, they're going to be high in potassium. And the type of potassium that these salt substitutes are, they're very easily absorbed into the body. So it can be dangerous for someone with CKD. So I generally tell people to try and avoid them. But as you can see, a 1/4 teaspoon of this Morton salt substitute, it has 690 milligrams of potassium. So that's a lot. I added this on here, these salt-free seasoned breadcrumbs, because this is actually made with potassium chloride. So it has 270 milligrams of potassium, but no salt. So it's just something to be aware of. That's why I was saying you really can't always trust the nutrient claims. Like this says salt-free right on it. A lot of people may think, this is perfect, no salt in here. But especially if someone's on dialysis, this can be very dangerous. And same thing with the chicken noodle soup. They're using, there is sodium chloride in here as well as potassium chloride. So this is high in both sodium and potassium. Okay, let's see. So there actually is a time and a place for added salt. So if you're cooking with all fresh ingredients, so say you're making a pasta dish and, you're going to cook up some vegetables. You're not adding salt to the pepper and onion. You're making some broccoli with it. You're using olive oil. You're using a no added salt canned tomato. So there is, a little bit of natural salt in these foods, but I would say like all of these foods combined, maybe say they're giving you like 10 to 20 milligrams of sodium. That's like nothing. So you definitely can cook with a pinch of salt. I recommend using it at the end of the dish because that way you're going to taste it more. So this is a good tip for someone who is just used to cooking with salt. Just try and hold yourself back from adding it during the cooking and then add it at the end, and you could always use like a measuring spoon, like 1/8 of a teaspoon. That is a pinch for some people. Obviously everyone's pinch is going to be different, but you could always use a teaspoon just to make sure you're not overdoing it. Because even if you're adding 300 milligrams of sodium to this, it's still well within your budget for sodium for that meal. So yeah, your meals do not have to be completely void of sodium. There's some wiggle room there. So of course, it's a good idea to try and incorporate some dried herbs and spices into your meal, because, you know, we want to have our meals flavorful. And there's also benefits to adding herbs and spices like antioxidants that are great benefits for CKD. Cooking with lemon and lime adds really great flavor. Of course, like garlic, onion, ginger. I love using vinegar. Sesame oil adds a great flavoring, especially if you're cooking like something Asian. And just check the label, check out some lower sodium sauces. So there's a lot of different hot sauces. There's this brand CKD. It had 45 milligrams per 1 teaspoon. For some reason, it didn't let me put the picture of it there. But there is a sauce called coconut aminos. It's basically, I would use it as a substitute for soy sauce. So there is sodium in it, 90 milligrams per 1 teaspoon, but that is significantly less than even the low sodium soy sauce. And of course, there's tons of like barbecue sauces and other things on the market. You just have to compare the labels and try and find one, you know, that's going to be lower in sodium. Just see what's out there. There's so many different brands that are great. All right, so some last tips. So a good way to start to just see where you're at with your sodium is just tracking your intake for a day or two. So you can track it the old-fashioned way with like a food journal. So just write down, like you'd have to look at the labels and just write everything down. Or there's apps out there for food tracking. I like Chronometer. It's free. I have an app on my phone, and you can also just go to chronometer.com and just do it on your computer. But that's a really good app. So if you're used to using salts, just know that eventually your taste buds will adapt, and then following a low sodium diet really won't be a big deal. So studies have shown it does take about 2 to 3 months, but just stick with it. Once your taste buds adapt, it's much easier to just stick with the low sodium diet. And then once you're used to eating low sodium, you'll realize, you know, when you go out to eat, you're like, wow, there's a lot of salt in this. So yeah, it's crazy how your taste buds can change like that. So if you're eating out a lot, I would definitely recommend trying to reduce the frequency. Eating out is expensive, so you're also going to be saving a ton of money. If you're not used to cooking, like feel free, check out YouTube. Like whenever I'm cooking something, like say I'm trying to make, I don't know, like salmon or something. I've never made it before. So I'll just Google like how to cook salmon. And then there's so many YouTube videos that are out there that'll walk you through it. I check it out all the time if I'm cutting like a fruit that I forget how to cut. Like I did that the other day for pomegranate. Like I was like, I don't know how to open this. I just YouTubed it and figured it out pretty easy that way. So definitely use the internet when you can. And so you can do it with the low sodium diet. Just take one step at a time. Change doesn't happen overnight. It's just small, sustainable changes are going to add up and improve your health. All right, so that is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
That was great information right there. Man, I learn something every time I see one of these things, and thank you for that, because some of the information I didn't know. Like I keep it real with the brand cereal. I thought, okay, it's a brand cereal, it shouldn't be anything like. And I can only imagine what the kids cereal has in it as far as, you know, sodium. You know, I know they have a lot of potassium in them, but I can only imagine. But let me start right here though with this question. Why do you think we're seeing not just people with CKD, but with just the average person more sodium when we know it's bad for us. We're still seeing foods loaded. It seems like every year we're seeing more and more foods loaded with more sodium, and people are having, when I went to my my nephrologist, and he is like, we see so many people with high blood pressure, and we see it more and more and more, and the stats keep going up. So why do you think that when we know this information?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know there is a big push right now with the FDA and food companies. There is a major push to reduce sodium in packaged foods. But the only issue with that is some companies may switch to using potassium chloride, which is definitely dangerous for CKD. But I feel like, they know the packaged food is an issue. I feel like it's just the American lifestyle. Like everyone's running around busy, eating on the go. We all do it sometimes. It does take extra effort to cook at home, but I, recommend, trying to pick a day to meal plan. If you're going to be out like around lunchtime, just plan ahead, maybe bring something with you, pack a lunch to work.
Right.
Yeah, right. Part of it is we're just so used to eating out and being on the go, so it's tough.
Yeah. Alex chimed in with a great information when she said, read your labels. And I think that's very important, not just for people with CKD, but with people, just everybody. Read those labels. And sometimes the labels are shocking because some of your favorite foods, like I keep it real, I like Chipotle, and to see how much sodium it has, I'm just like, wow, I thought I was doing good. Even though I do get the brown rice, I don't even mess with the white rice. And I still see, but I do get the chicken because I need some protein in my body. So I can, in the chicken, sometimes I have gotten their chicken and it's been very salty because I've seen them when they're cooking it and they're dumping the sodium on it. So
exactly. Yeah. And they have a nutrition calculator for Chipotle, but it depends on who's cooking. Like they might not be following the exact recipe. So it's like, you never know.
Right, man. And so I want to tell you another thing was when I was on dialysis, I used to be really, really regimented as far as, watching my sodium. And I checked out the McDonald's bun. And that's a good thing you said, the bread. People are so surprised when they find out so much sodium. McDonald's bun, the Big Mac bun had 1,005 milligrams by itself. I'm talking about 3 pieces of bread. It had the two and then the one in the middle.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's, sesame seed bun. You just thinking it's just a normal bun.
I know. Yeah, it's shocking. Yeah, they're a big one.
That's mind blowing. And another thing you pointed out, because we use pink salt in our house, and I didn't even know why it was better for you, but now that makes sense because the smaller granules weigh less and you get so many more, and the bigger ones are take up more space. That's a good point right there. I like that. Thank you for that information. Yeah. Phil, go ahead. Me, I can keep on asking questions forever.
I'm not even gonna comment on that. I'm gonna, you said it, not me, but we're gonna go and go to this commercial. welcome back to a second chance. Mr. Cook, take it away, sir. And I know you over there anxious. You probably, I got all these questions. I got to get out. Hey, I don't blame you. I like to hear this information. Let's definitely get into it.
I just think the information is wonderful, man, and I think people need to heed to this. One thing I wanted to talk to you about was and Bella said it also. I like that you put in there the natural spices. I'm a big fan of Mrs. Dash. I still use that right now, and I think Mrs. Dash and using the natural herbs and spices, cooking with fresh, fresh bay leaves, onions, tomatoes, all those things cut up in, whether it's your spaghetti or whatever it be. Those things are flavorful. And I really, really believe in those things. What's your thoughts on that instead of eating the salt all the time?
Yeah, I love using different herbs and spices. I mean, you just think of what type of cuisine you like. Like for Italian, the basil and the oregano. I love using smoked paprika. It kind of has like a barbecue flavor. It's really good on like vegetables, chicken. Yeah. And Mrs. Dash, they have so many different blends now. Like it's crazy. Like,
Yes.
So that's really convenient for people that aren't really familiar with using spices. They could pick up something like a Mrs. Dash blend, and it's a great way to add flavor. Definitely.
Right. I think also you said something that was really, really profound, and I want everybody to understand this. We have to take control of what we put in our mouths. And that means, you might have to open up a cookbook. You might have to start doing something on your own and not relying on, I'm not going to get fast food and nothing like that, because every now and then I might grab some with the kids and stuff like that, but it's very rarely. But the point I'm making is, when you go to these fast food restaurants, you have a 16-year-old making your food, and you cannot subject yourself to a 16-year-old kid that just got out of high school playing on TikTok, and now he's gonna make your food for your dinner that night. You want to be a little bit more cautious than that, and pay attention and take control of what you put in your mouth. And that means, turn on them burners, open up a cookbook and start reading and start, following directions and making your own food. And you'll be surprised how much money you save. That's what you said. I love that, Lindsay. And you'll be surprised that you can have leftovers for the next day, and you don't have to cook. You can have 2 or 3 meals. You can intertwine them. Like I had this on Monday, I'll have it Wednesday, and then get out that rut. And another thing is this: you control how much sodium, how much phosphorus, and everything you put in those meals. You control it, and therefore, when you control it like that, the benefits are amazing. The benefits are you lose fat, your sodium intake is better, your phosphorus intake is better. All these other things are better, and it's less costly. I just think it's a win-win all year round.
Let me add on to all my questions about more or less kind of fast food, because we all know that nobody's just going to make that straight change immediately. It's going to take some time, right? So you got to take baby steps to get where you're trying to go. So out of my questions, my first one would be, what would you suggest to someone that has CKD to eat prior to maybe going out? Like they have like a celebration or something like that at a dining restaurant somewhere, and I noticed in your presentation you said maybe try to plan ahead, figure out what you're gonna eat before. What would you recommend somebody like that eat in between that breakfast and lunch time? Because you're not gonna be the one that want to just eat salad while everybody else eating ribs and everything else, right? You want to partake in that a little bit. So to be able to include yourself in that, what would you suggest that they eat? How would they plan for that?
So I definitely believe in the plant-based approach for CKD. So usually I tell people for breakfast, stick with something like oatmeal with some berries, some nuts, add some cinnamon to give it some spice. You can even add a little bit of natural sweetener like maple syrup or something. For lunch, try and do like a healthy plant-based lunch. Try to up the vegetables, include healthy fats. because you want to make sure you're full and satisfied. Even before you go out to dinner, I mean, it's a good idea to have a fresh snack, just so you don't show up to the dinner starving. So like you could have like an apple with peanut butter, hummus with like low salt crackers or some cut up vegetables or something. Just something to kind of fill your stomach a little bit with some fiber, especially. So that way, you know, when you go out to eat, you're not going to feel as guilty if you know, have that rich dish. Because, you know, I tell people, you know, plan on a cheat meal every now and then. It's going to be fine. And, you know, you're going to be back on track the next day, hydrate with water, and then, you know, just go on with your life.
That's funny because my uncle just told me exactly what you just said at the end about having cheat days. He used to be a professional bodybuilder, so he knows,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, pretty much eating right and all that stuff like that. And we were, you know, talking about that today. So that's crazy. My next question is, um, when in that position, right? So you get to wherever restaurant you're in, right? What to you, what are the best pre-choice, like pre-entree choices? So, you know, what kind of salads or soups, or, you know, if they get the salad with a certain type of dressing, you know, what about those?
So definitely I would recommend more of like a salad or vegetable based starter and not the soup, just because they batch cook the soup. So they're not going to be able to cut out the sodium, and soups tend to be super high in sodium. So it's definitely good to start with like a salad or something. The dressings I prefer is the more simple ones, like just oil and vinegar. Sometimes they can even bring it out to the table, like a thing of like olive oil and vinegar,
Right.
or just get, you know, a clear, like a balsamic rather than like the ranch maybe on the side. When you have it on the side, like you could sometimes you're going to use less of the dressing compared to them like dousing the salad in it, because the dressing is going to be where a lot of the salt is. And believe it or not, some restaurants actually add salt to the salad. So I've worked in restaurants before and they do this. Like, so you can always ask them, you know, not to put seasoning on it. It's crazy when I first realized that they did that at restaurants. Not all restaurants.
Yeah.
Some of the ones that I've worked
Those
at.
people that put salt on their salad, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? Wow.
I mean, it brings out the flavor maybe, but I'm just like so used to not having salt. Like I can't stand it now.
But one thing you said is, I think is really prolific too, is when you said, you know, when you're cooking, put the sodium on last, because that's very important, you know, because that's when you're going to taste it and everything. And another thing I want to tell people is, taste your food before you put salt on it, even at the table. You know, taste it first.
Definitely.
I see people get their food and they haven't even tasted it, and they start dumping stuff on it and haven't even tasted it. So
yeah, it's like a habit for some people.
and I'm like, you ain't even tasted the food yet. How do you know? You know, and I'm very conscious. You know, anybody who with our background, we're very conscious of the sodium and you know what we put in our mouths and things like that. But yeah, I have no more questions. Thank you so much, because you hit me in the head with the Chipotle too, and I'm a Chipotle fan.
Hey, but look at their website before you go next time.
Okay, I will for sure. But I'm thinking I'm doing okay, because I just get the guacamole, the protein, and the brown rice, and you said the pico has a lot of sodium, and I love pico. My wife makes some of the greatest pico, man. I smash it. I put it on everything. I love it so much. She makes a wonderful batch of pico, but and she watches the sodium. You know, like I said, but when you get it from somewhere else, you know, people tend to put a lot of sodium in their foods.
Exactly. Yeah.
But thank you so much. I appreciate it, Phil. I don't have any more questions. I will read the labels now. Thank you.
So my last question, and then we can wrap it up, really is probably something that if anybody that's been watching from the beginning was probably kind of lost on. But why is there a difference in, well, not why is there a difference, but why is the difference the way it is in sodium of dine in and takeout, being a dine in is a higher number
Mm-hmm.
than takeout. I would have thought it was the other way around. I know a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
probably do too. That's probably why most of them say I'd rather go to dine in and take out any
Yeah.
day. You
Yeah,
know
because
this.
people tell me, a lot of my dialysis patients will be like, "Oh, I never eat fast food," but they say, "Oh, I just go to a sit down restaurant." But I think it's just because you're typically getting a bigger meal if you're going to like a restaurant, like
Yeah.
because if you're just getting, a cheeseburger and fries, that's not a ton. It's a good size meal, but compared to the serving sizes at restaurants, their serving sizes are going to be larger. Um, so I think that's the main reason why it's higher overall.
Okay. That makes sense. I didn't think of it that way. So, but yeah, Ms. Cook said he ain't got no, doesn't have any more questions, and
I do want to
I don't.
say
That was my
I do
last
want to say
one.
what Bella said. All of us, and in this in this lane, be careful of the processed foods that we eat.
Yeah.
The TV dinner type foods, the foods
Mm-hmm.
that you can just throw in a microwave and they come out, and they're ready to go. The processed foods are the ones, just like she said, we all have to remember 10% is the sodium you put on your food. So that's not that much. We're talking about the food that's already packaged
Mm-hmm.
into the food. And just like Lindsay said, I believe it's maybe our FDA or whatever is coming up with regimens to slow down the sodium because of the crisis we're seeing in our country with the sodium. It's crazy. So
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to say that.
Definitely.
Awesome, awesome. Well, another great presentation again, Lizzie. Thank you very much
Thank
for coming
you.
on
Yeah.
with us tonight. We appreciate it so much. Do you have any last words before we go?
No, I'm just excited to present, especially, it's National Kidney Month. So I love talking about nutrition, obviously. So yeah, I loved being able to present. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And next
Thank
month
you.
is Donate Life Month, so don't be surprised if you see another message because we probably come up with a bunch of stuff too. We just work like that for some reason. So, but again, thank you very much. Appreciate you. Have a great night. Everybody else also who's watching now, watching in the future, we appreciate your love and your support. Have a great night and have a great rest of the week. We'll see you. Hope tomorrow morning, Mr. Cook.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, tomorrow morning. Have a great night.
All right. Peace.